And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
The people of the state of New York. Indictment. Defendants. The grand jury of the County of New York by this indictment accuses the defendants Ingrid Lewis-Martin, Glenn D. Martin II, a.k.a. Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, Tianji Li, and Visho Inc. of the crime of conspiracy in the fourth degree, in violation of Penal Law SS 105.10, committed as follows. The defendants, in New York County and elsewhere, from on or about June 27, 2022, to on or about September 27, 2024, with intent that conduct constituting the crimes of bribery in the second degree, in violation of Penal Law SS 200.03, and bribe receiving in the second degree, in violation of Penal Law SS 200.11. Said crimes being Class C felonies, be committed, knowingly, and intentionally agreed with others, known and unknown, to engage in and cause the performance of such conduct that constitutes the above-mentioned Class C felonies. It was the purpose of this conspiracy for Ingrid Lewis-Martin, then Chief Advisor to Mayor Eric Adams, to use her authority and influence in that position for the benefit of Tianji Li, Visho Inc., and or others, known and unknown, in exchange for United States currency and other benefits, including benefits to her son, defendant Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave, also known as Suave Luciano. It was also part of this conspiracy for Ingrid Lewis-Martin to intervene with the New York City Department of Buildings, located at 280 Broadway, New York, NY, to obtain assistance for Tianji Li and Visho Inc. for a construction project at 31 to 25 Downing Street, Queens, NY. It was also part of this conspiracy for Ingrid Lewis-Martin to intervene with the New York City Fire Department to obtain assistance for Tianji Li and Visho Inc. for a construction project at 31 to 25 Downing Street, Queens, NY. It was also part of this conspiracy for Tianji Li to solicit Ingrid Lewis-Martin's assistance on behalf of other property owners seeking to obtain leasing agreements with New York City agencies and or public benefits corporations, including shelter services for asylum seekers. It was also part of this conspiracy for Ingrid Lewis-Martin to direct certain city officials, whose identities are known to the grand jury, to give priority to Tianji Li's preferred property owners to obtain leasing agreements with New York City agencies and or public benefits corporations. It was also part of this conspiracy for Tianji Li to receive 10% of any leasing agreement between his preferred property owners and any New York City agency and or public benefits corporation. It was also part of this conspiracy for Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, to act as an intermediary between Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Tianji Li and Visho Inc. to facilitate the ongoing bribery scheme by communicating and meeting with and receiving payment and other benefits from Tianji Li and Visho Inc. and or other entities, and to insulate Ingrid Lewis-Martin from the ongoing bribery scheme. It was also part of this conspiracy for Ingrid Lewis-Martin, Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, and Tianji Li to communicate with each other and others using encrypted messaging applications over cell phones. Overt acts. In furtherance of said conspiracy and to achieve the object crimes thereof, the following overt acts, among others, were committed. 1. On June 27, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to Tianji Li and another person known to the grand jury listing a menu of food and alcohol for an upcoming event. 2. On June 27, 2022, Tianji Li sent a text message to Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Jane Doe 1 stating that he had hired a DJ for the boat for the upcoming event. 3. On October 24, 2022, Tianji Li sent an email to Ingrid Lewis-Martin requesting assistance with fire alarm application 2022 TM FALM -9400 AMND filed on behalf of Visho Inc.'s landlord. 4. On November 4, 2022, Tian Li Ji sent a text message to Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Jane Doe 1 about meeting that evening. 5. On November 5, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to Tianji Li and Jane Doe 1 stating, "I took care of what we discussed. It is in the works." 6. On November 8, 2022, Tianji Li sent a follow-up email to Ingrid Lewis-Martin and the FDNY Commissioner requesting assistance with fire alarm application 2022 TM Falm -9400 AMND, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc.'s landlord. 7. On November 10, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent an email to the FDNY Commissioner regarding fire alarm application 2022 TM Falm -9400 AMND, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc.'s landlord. 8. On November 14, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent an email to the FDNY Commissioner and other FDNY employees stating, "Please do a quick follow-up to ensure that the request is in the pipeline and will be addressed expeditiously," referring to fire alarm application 2022 NTM Falm -9400 AMND, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc.'s landlord. 9. On November 16, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text to Tianji and Jane Doe 1 about meeting on November 20, 2022. 10. On November 17, 2022, Tianji Li sent an email to Ingrid Lewis-Martin, the FDNY Commissioner, and others confirming that fire alarm application 2022 and TM Falm 009400 AMND was approved. 11. On November 18, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to Tianji Li and Jane Doe 1 to arrange a meeting on November 20, 2022. 12. On November 22, 2022, V-Show Inc., through a representative, applied to the DLB to renew 3 expired work permit applications for 31 to 25 Downing Street, Queens, NY. 13. On November 22, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent an email to the acting DOB Commissioner asking that DOB review the 3 work permit application renewals for 31 to 25 Downing Street, Queens, NY. 14. On November 28, 2022, at 3:52 p.m., Ingrid Lewis-Martin made a note in her iPhone, which stated TJ and 833 39th Street, Brooklyn, NY 11232. 15. On November 28, 2022, at 3:52 p.m., Ingrid Lewis-Martin called Tianji Li. 16. On November 28, 2022, at 3:54 p.m., Tianji Li called Ingrid Lewis-Martin. 17. On November 28, 2022, Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, made a note in his iPhone, which stated T.I.J. Li and Tianji Li's phone number. 18. On November 29, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Tianji Li met in the vicinity of Bowery and Broome Street in New York County. 19. On November 29, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin used her cell phone in New York County to take a photograph of a list of addresses. 20. On November 29, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message from New York County to Glenn D. Martin II, a.k.a. Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, of the photograph of the address list. 21. On November 29, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message from New York County to Glenn D. Martin II, a.k.a. Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, 2 years before. Finished. 9 MOS. Please add to the pipeline, other 2 opened. Let us make it happen. I will set up a meeting with you and TJ Li. 22. On November 30th, 2022, Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave Luciano, made a note in his iPhone of the addresses and comments Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent to him the day before. 23. On December 8, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the acting DOB Commissioner asking, in sum and substance, to lift a stop work order issued to Downing Street Realty, LLC, on November 14, 2022. 24. On December 15, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the acting DOB Commissioner with additional information regarding the stop work order issued to Downing Street Realty, LLC, on November 14, 2022. 25. On December 16, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the acting DOB Commissioner, stating that Tianji Li was the point of contact for the stop work order issued to Downing Street Realty, LLC, on November 14, 2022. 26. On December 19, 2022, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the acting DOB commissioner thanking him for lifting the stop work order issued to Downing Street Realty LLC on November 14, 2022. 27. On December 29, 2022, Tianji Li sent a number of messages about potential city contracts for shelter sites for asylum seekers to a property owner and another person known to the grand jury using a messaging application called WeChat. 28. On January 2, 2023, using WeChat, Tianji Li sent a number of audio messages to property owner 1 and John Doe 1 requesting information from property owner 1 about potential shelter locations for the New York City Department of Homeless Services. 29. On January 12, 2023, Tianji Li sent a text message to another property owner with the summary of terms for a potential lease agreement with the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation to provide shelter services for a humanitarian emergency response and relief center site. 30. On January 28, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Tianji Li met with the Department of Social Services Commissioner and Jane Doe 1 at Michael's Restaurant, located at 2929 Avenue R, Brooklyn, NY. 31. On February 10, 2023, Tianji Li sent a text message with a picture of himself and Glenn D. Martin II, aka Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, to Glenn D. Martin II, aka Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, and stated, "Nice to meet you." 32. On February 10, 2023, Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave, Luciano, responded to Tianji Li, likewise TJ Li. "I'm Glenn Martin's son." 33. On February 13, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the FDNY Commissioner requesting, "Can you have someone look into this to ensure that it moves expeditiously? FDNY case hashtag 2022 TM 002516, referring to a fire alarm application filed on behalf of V-Show Inc. 34. On February 24, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the FDNY Commissioner stating, "Good evening, sis. This is an 11th hour. I sent this info on a prior occasion. Whoever responded made an error. Please have a different set of eyes review the plan," referring to fire alarm application 2022 TM 002516, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc. 35. On March 17, 2023, Tianji Li sent a text message to Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Jane Doe 1 stating, 4:30 tomorrow, Park Asian, 36. On March 18, 2023, Tianji Li sent a text message to Glenn D. Martin II, aka Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, with V-Show Inc.'s address. 37. On March 18, 2023, Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, responded to Tianji Li, "We will meet this week." 38. On March 21, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to Tianji Li and Jane Doe 1, asking Tianji Li to host a party for March Madness. 39. On March 21, 2023, Tianji Li responded to Ingrid Lewis-Martin, "Okay, I'm going to prepare." 40. On April 3, 2023, Tianji Li, using WeChat, sent himself information containing the location, square footage, and contact information for 3 potential shelter locations. 41. On April 3, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent text messages to the DSS Chief of Staff, forwarding the same information that Tianji Li sent himself earlier that day for 2 of the 3 potential shelter locations. 42. On May 5, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the FDNY Commissioner asking the FDNY Commissioner to look into fire alarm application 2023 TM FALM 003511 AMND, which was filed on behalf of V-Show Inc. on April 26, 2023. 43. On June 1, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin forwarded a text message she received from Tianji Li to the Deputy Mayor of Operations and the Department of Transportation Commissioner. "Good morning, sister. The owner of 9075 Sutphin BLVD, Jamaica, needs help to get the crane permit before June 5th. With the message to them, please assist." 44. On June 12, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the DOB First Deputy Commissioner requesting the DOB FDC expedite DOB job number 421 $661,320. A post-approval amendment filed on behalf by V-Show Inc. 45. On June 13, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin again sent a text message to the DOB-FDC requesting the DOB-FDC to expedite DOB job number 421,661,320. A post-approval amendment filed on behalf by V-Show Inc. 46. On June 29, 2023, in a group WeChat with John Doe 1 and a person known to the grand jury, Tianji Li confirmed that he received a document entitled Final Consultation Service Agreement, 829/39, St. PDF. 47. On June 29, 2023, Tianji Li sent a text message to the Department of Citywide Administrative Services Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, confirming an appointment for a walkthrough of a property owned by property owner 148. On July 7, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message at 2:07 a.m. to the FDNY Commissioner, asking the FDNY Commissioner to look into fire alarm application 2023 TM Fom 003511 AMND, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc. 49. On July 24, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin again sent a text message to the FDNY Commissioner, asking the FDNY Commissioner to please address fire alarm application 2023 TM Fom 003511 AMND, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc. 50. On August 2, 2023, Tianji Li sent a text message to the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services stating, "Sister asked, can you come to Flushing or dinner tonight?" 51. On August 2, 2023, Ingrid Lewis-Martin sent a text message to the FDNY Commissioner and asked that someone contact the applicant for fire alarm application 2023 TM Fom 003500 and 11 AMND, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc. 52. On August 7, 2023, after Tianji Li's company, Great Future New York, received $82,500 from a company owned by property owner 1, Tianji Li transferred $25,000 of this money to his company Bazzara Inc. 53. On August 7, 2023, Tianji Li caused $15,000 to be transferred from Bazzara Inc. to V-Show Inc. 54. On August 8, 2023, Tianji Li transferred $25,000 from Great Future NY Inc. to Bazzara Inc. 55. On August 9, 2023, Tianji Li caused $25,000 to be transferred from Bazzara Inc. to V-Show Inc. 56. On August 10, 2023, Tianji Li transferred $15,000 from Great Future NY Inc. to Bazzara Inc. 57. On August 10, 2023, Tianji Li caused $12,000 to be transferred from Bazzara Inc. to V-Show Inc. 58. On August 11, 2023, at approximately 9:26 a.m., Tianji Li called Ingrid Lewis-Martin. 59. On August 11, 2023, at approximately 9:47 a.m., V-Show Inc. wired $50,000 to Suave Productions LLC, a company owned and controlled by Glenn D. Martin II, also known as Suave, also known as Suave Luciano. 60. On October 31, 2023, Tianji Li sent a text message to Ingrid Lewis-Martin asking her to pay attention to fire alarm application 2023 TM Fom 009062 AMND, filed on behalf of V-Show Inc. 61. On November 1, 2023, Tianji Li sent a follow-up text message to Ingrid Lewis-Martin asking her to pay attention to fire alarm application 2023 TM Fom 009062 AMMD, which on behalf of V-Show Inc. 62. On February 10, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called Tianji Li to set up a meeting for 6:30 p.m. that night at the place 63. On February 12, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called Tianji Li from New York County to confirm that he was at the club. Tianji Li stated, "No problem. Family only," and Lewis-Martin responded, "Keep a bottle of champagne cold for your sister." 64. On February 14, 2024, using WeChat, Tianji Li sent an audio message to property owner 1 and John Doe 1 about extending property owner 1's leasing agreement with HHC to provide shelter services for a HERC site. 65. On February 14, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called Tianji Lee from New York County, instructing him, "I'm going to eat at your restaurant, so meet me there." 66. On February 17, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called Tianji Lee and stated, "He's working on that other thing with that guy. I spoke to him today. You know what I'm talking about, right?" 67. On February 27, 2024, at 9:48 p.m., Tianji Lee called Ingrid Lewis-Martin and asked if they could meet that night at her house. Little bit emergency because I need to show you something. I have to show you something for the agreement. 68. On February 28, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called her deputy chief of staff from New York County and instructed her to find a time in Ingrid Lewis-Martin's schedule to meet with Tianji Lee that day. 69. On February 28, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called her deputy chief of staff and told her that Tianji Lee should meet Ingrid Lewis-Martin inside 99 Church Street, New York, NY, and that Tianji Lee wanted to talk to her alone. 70. On February 28, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Tianji Lee met inside 99 Church Street, New York, NY. 71. On March 11, 2024, Tianji Lee used WhatsApp, an end-to-end encrypted messaging application, to communicate with the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services about properties owned by property owner 1. On March 21, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services from New York County to discuss hotel contracts with the city and problems that were affecting their people. 73. On March 22, 2024, Tianji Lee called Ingrid Lewis-Martin about meeting each other. Lewis-Martin responded that she would be there in like 5 minutes. 74. On May 3, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin met with Tianji Lee, the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, and others at a restaurant located at 151 East 50th Street, New York, NY. 75. On May 9, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called John Doe 2, a city hall official involved with shelters for asylum seekers, and informed him, "I have a location I'm going to send you I want you to look at for a shelter. Nobody I know is getting shelter. Nobody." 76. On May 11, 2024, in a telephone call, Ingrid Lewis-Martin informed John Doe 2 that John Doe 2 and the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services will handle all the contracts going forward. And that's it. 77. On May 11, 2024, in a telephone call, Tianji Lee told Ingrid Lewis-Martin that doesn't like that DHS program, they only like the 78. On May 11, 2024, in the same telephone call, Lewis-Martin directed Tianji Lee to send her the information and stated, "The other one I sent them over, so I'm going to try to get the other one, the migrants for the other one you sent me the other day." 79. On May 11, 2024, in a telephone call, Ingrid Lewis-Martin told the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, "Send you one that I want to go in the health and hospital because they're complaining that they never get a chance." 80. On May 15, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin called the director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice and provided 2 addresses owned by property owner 1. 81. On May 25, 2024, in a telephone call, Ingrid Lewis-Martin instructed the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, "I want you all to go back to the sites for TJ Lee. I'll send it to you, and I need those done. Whatever site TJ wants, I need him to get them, because that's our fucking people." 82. On May 31, 2024, in a telephone call, Ingrid Lewis-Martin directed the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, "Can you make sure that when I'm sending you a fucking site, finds the site I fucking send you?" 83. On June 7, 2024, in a telephone call, Ingrid Lewis-Martin asked the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, "What's going on with the 2 projects I sent y'all, the hotels?" and instructed, "Get them both. Come on, let's do it now. Y'all wasting time." 84. On June 25, 2024, in a telephone call from New York County, Ingrid Lewis-Martin and the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services discussed the status of certain shelters, and the DKA's Deputy Commissioner confirmed, TJ, he's first. He's first in line, 85. On August 22, 2024, in a telephone call between the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services and TNG Lee, following a meeting between the DKA's Deputy Commissioner and John Doe 1, TNG Lee asked, "Everything's moving," referring to 2 potential shelter locations. The DKA's Deputy Commissioner confirmed, "Yeah, everything is moving." 86. On August 28, 2024, in a conference call with City Hall officials and the DCA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, Ingrid Lewis-Martin directed the officials to move forward with a leasing agreement for a property owned by property owner 1. 87. On August 30th, 2024, in a series of telephone calls, Ingrid Lewis-Martin set up a meeting among her, Tianji Lee, and the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services. 88. On August 30th, 2024, Ingrid Lewis-Martin directed her Deputy Chief of Staff to have a city car drive her and the DKA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services to the meeting with Tianji Lee. 89. On September 27, 2024, Tianji Lee deleted text messages between himself and Ingrid Lewis-Martin that were in his phone. 90. On September 27, 2024, Tianji Lee deleted text messages between himself and the DCA's Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services that were in his phone. Count 2. And the grand jury aforesaid, by this indictment, accuses the defendants TNG Lee and V-Show Inc. of the crime of bribery in the second degree in violation of Penal Law SS 200.03 committed as follows. The defendants, in the County of New York and elsewhere, during the period from on or about June 27, 2022, to on or about September 27, 2024, conferred and offered and agreed to confer a benefit in excess of $5,000 upon a public servant, upon an agreement and understanding that such public servant's vote, opinion, judgment, action, decision, and exercise of discretion as a public servant would thereby be influenced. Count 3. And the grand jury aforesaid, by this indictment, accuses the defendants Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Glenn D. Martin II, a.k.a. Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, of the crime of bribe receiving in the second degree, in violation of Penal Law SS 200.11, committed as follows. The defendants, in the County of New York and elsewhere, during the period from on or about June 27, 2022, to on or about September 27, 2024, solicited, accepted, and agreed to accept a benefit in excess of $5,000 from another person. Upon an agreement and understanding the defendant Ingrid Lewis-Martin's vote, opinion, judgment, action, decision, and exercise of discretion as a public servant would thereby be influenced. Alvin L. Bragg, Jr., District Attorney. Filed, the people of the state of New York, against Ingrid Lewis-Martin, Glenn D. Martin II, a.k.a. Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, Tianji Lee, V-Show Inc. defendants. Indictment. Conspiracy in the fourth degree, PL, SS, 105.10 bribery in the second degree, PLSS, 200.03. Def Lee, 1 count, Def V-Show Inc. 1 count bribe receiving in the second degree, PLSS 200.11, Def Lewis-Martin, 1 count Def Martin II, a.k.a. Suave, also known as Suave Luciano, 1 count. A true bill. Guy R. Tardanico, Denise D. Vassell, Hannah Perlman, Ken Moore, Assistant District Attorney's Rackets Bureau. Foreman.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?